So history is your guys' favorite subject. I think it's the entire family's favorite subject.
We are big on history. We love to do history in this house.
I actually have a history degree. It's an art history degree, but only because the school I went to didn't have a history degree.
That's what happens when you try to get a history at art school.
I know! So
history has been really, really fun. So I guess we started
with Calvert Language Arts. Or no, not Language Arts.
The Calvert Social Studies thing, which we did all of in about a month. We did the year's worth of books in about a month because Ellie would do a book a day. Compare that to the Language Arts book, where she was doing like a book a week and a half. This one she was doing a book a day in, and we quickly realized that that was the wrong kind of thing to do for history. And it was too like, you are a person, you live in a community, your community is, and it's like, all right,
it felt like preschool.
Yeah, Zelly has a pretty good understanding of this. It's
like Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood covered all of this.
Yeah. So while we were doing the classical conversations work, we were doing the ancient history stuff. And while we were doing ancient history is when we
bought so many books that our postman called us out on it.
He did. He was like, you guys starting a library in here or a bookstore? What's going on?
And at one point he actually said, I would like to ask you a favor. Could you please actually read all of these before you buy more?
We were starting to hurt his back. Poor guy.
We really like our postman.
Poor guy.
He's great.
So we were buying a lot of books, and Molly stumbled upon getting the Who Was book series for very cheap, and she bought a bunch. And so while we were doing the classical conversations, like ancient history stuff, when we got to ones we had a Who Was book on, we started reading the Who Was books for them. And then we started reading all of the Who Was books around that we could get, that we had in our collection about the ancient world and everything from the ancient
of which
times.
there are not many.
There are not many. There were maybe 4 or 5 books that we're able to do. But that got us into this rhythm where Zelly really enjoyed just the structure and the layout of the Who Was book series. And so we started just lining the Who Was books up throughout history, and we'd add some supplemental stuff. And for ancient history, we read some textbooks about
we've read
Neolithic man.
A lot of books.
We read a lot of different books, and a lot of textbooky textbooks about prehistoric man and Neolithic man and the Ice Age.
We had a really good First Peoples book.
Yeah, and we did a cool unit on the first peoples of North America and the migrations of patterns of the early humans, and we did some really cool work on that. But then when we got into at a certain point in our ancient history, probably around the Middle Ages, we were just doing Who Was books. We had built up this collection of Who Was books, and we finally were in a period of history where we had enough of them, where we did biographies and locations and landmarks, and we did Who Was books throughout history. And we read, 137?
I have a list. So you guys got through, by January, you got through 86 Who Was books. And currently, you guys are just shy of 150.
Yeah. So we read some books, and then we read some other books to supplement those. So when we were in a part of history where we didn't have a good Who Was book yet for it, we'd read some other small biographies or... Oh, the other thing that we supplemented the Who Was books was that everything you need to know about world history to get through middle school world history. and we did the entire book in like a month maybe.
And then you did the same thing for U.S. history.
And then we did the same thing for U.S. history. And it was just the U.S. history one that we did.
Okay. Oh, that's right, because before that you guys did Story of the World.
Yeah. And we had listened to all of Story of the World. And
we did a lot of the Good and the Beautiful history when we were doing Ancient Times too. We lined up, we got all 4 years and we lined it up and we did cycle 1 with the Good and the Beautiful.
Yeah.
And that was kind of our spine at the time.
Yeah.
If we had one. We just read a lot of books.
We read a lot of books.
Sorry, there's a baby in the background being adorable.
A lot of history for us is reading books outside on walks, while we're playing at the park, while we're playing in the yard. And so, like, it's natural that it's her favorite subject because it's, like, recess. But it's also, like, you think she's not paying attention and then you ask her questions about what we're reading and she starts answering you and it's like, oh, you're paying attention. Or you ask her questions about how it ties in to the other history books we've read.
And those got really cool. She started doing it on her own and looking for those connections.
It's that thing where she wants to find patterns everywhere, where she starts seeing patterns throughout history and how things are similar to each other.
And she starts going, okay, well, if this happened in this time period, then this would have also been happening over here.
Yeah.
And it's like, I didn't get that level of comprehension until high school.
Yeah.
And, like, I felt like I was a genius when I got that.
Yeah, and she is on it, like, now. She's making those connections, and it's awesome.
It is really, really cool. Okay, so you guys did Calvert, The Good and the Beautiful, History 1 through 4, but just kind of skipping around so that it's in order. And then you did the Who Was series, Everything You Need to Know in One Big Fat Notebook, Story of the World, and then just lots of books.
A lot of books.
And then games.
And we have there's a good timeline game we have. Actually, we have like 3 really good timeline games. And
the Professor Noggins game.
Professor Noggins.
Just loving.
She can do Professor Noggins questions all day. Like any series of history questions put out by them.
And like when we ask her to pick out a game, we're expecting, like, you expect a kid to pick out something
like fun, but she picks trivia games. She wants to do
trivia games,
question and answer history trivia.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, history's been great. Her current thing is that she wants to be an archaeologist now. She's moved on from astrohydrologist to I think maybe I want to do archaeology. And the cool thing about archaeology is it's kind of an amateur science. As a family, we could theoretically sign up to go on a dig.
Yeah. We were offered that when I was in college, remember?
I do. We could do that again.
We could, yeah. So yeah, history overall.
History. It's where we're at. And now we're going back again. And so we finished. So we did all of world history, and then we did the deep dive into American history, and we really got into it. And we did American history up to the present day. And then we jumped all the way back, and now we're going back into ancient history. And we're tying myth into that, and we're going real hard into Greek myth and Egyptian myth and like prehistory world building.
It's cool how you can go back over the same information, but through different material or through a different way in. Like we didn't do as much mythology last time, and now we're going hard on the mythology side.
Oh, and she loves it. And it's, and because it's stories and they're neat stories. But when you start doing a bunch of different mythology, you also start seeing how there really was kind of a uniform way that the ancient people across all of the world saw their prehistory. And that's neat. And she's starting to see those connections because she's a pattern seeker.
All right. Overall, history was great.
History is where it's at.